Hey guys, Corey Beasley with Fight Camp Conditioning, and today I'm going to showcase some of my favorite kettlebell exercises. So guys, a kettlebell is a tool that's become super commonplace. Like, it's all over there. You know, you see them in all the different gyms, and they're a very valuable tool. But just like any tool, they have their place. They have the thing that they're best at, right? So what we're going to do today is I'm going to go through a couple little warm-ups, and then we're going to go through a squat pattern, a hinge pattern, a swing, a lunging, and then we're going to do a press, and then a carry, all of which are kind of unique to kettlebells, right? Kettlebells offer a little bit different, variation because of the way the load sits, because of the way you have to hold it. It allows us to do things that maybe a dumbbell or a barbell it doesn't work well for. So this first exercise is one that we just use as a warm-up, right? So we're basically grabbing the horn or the corner of a bell and then simply standing tall and passing it around. So you're just simply going back and forth, passing that bell from hand to hand, and that's warming up the grip. It's kind of getting some timing going. Shoulders and arms are working a little bit, as well as your torso, so that you stay tall and you're not like flying all over the place. And again, we can do 20-30 repetitions going in both directions, keeping those arms relatively straight and just kind of getting things warmed up. This next one's another warm-up exercise that we're going to do. A halo is what I call it. You're basically going to grab the two corners again with the bell or the weight on the top part, okay? Weight's out in front of you, about sternum height, and you're going to tuck one elbow and go up, around. When you go to the back, you want your elbows high and that bell's kind of back between your shoulder blades. Then you tuck and come around. So it's just one seamless movement up and around. But this is going to help mobilize the shoulders and upper back, get everything open and loose, which is very vital when we're going to be doing, especially when we're doing a lot of pressing overhead and that type of stuff. But again, this is, for all these warm-ups, is a light bell. This one's a 12K, so it's like 24 pounds. But use a light load so that you're not stressing things out as you're warming up. So this first exercise is an overhead press, but we're going to do it from a half kneeling position on the ground. What I like about this half kneeling position is that it kind of solidifies and takes away your lower body. So if you're not standing on your feet, you can use your legs to get that bell up. This kind of like plants your feet down. You'll have one foot driving in behind you. That toe is active. You're driving into the floor. Your other foot is out in front of you. So your legs are at about 90 degrees on both, with the legs directly behind you and directly in front of you. A lot of people will flare out to give themselves more stability, but I want you to have that foot right out in front. From there, we're going to clean the bell up and rack position. So that bell's hanging on your thumb, forearms vertical, tight through the trunk, both feet are active, eyes forward, and then we're going to press up, up, and then your palm goes to the front. Arms locked out overhead, and your arms back by your ear. I wouldn't want your arm out in front of you. I want it just back by your ear, and then back down to that rack position. And you repeat that. But again, great for stability through the trunk and the hips, but then also working on the shoulder and that pressing movement, kind of isolating it without having to use the rest of the body. So this next one is an asymmetrical lunge pattern, which basically means we're going to have that the kettlebell racked on one side, which forces our trunk to challenges our trunk to stabilize while we're lunging. So what we're going to do, we're going to start clean the bell up to that rack position. So again, hanging on the thumb off that corner, forearms vertical, with that weight out in front of us, resting on our ribs. Okay. From there, we're going to stand real tall and step back with that same side leg, lunge down, and stand back up, right? Lunging, but trying to avoid, don't let that bell pull you around. You're holding your ground strong and standing up tall. But another great drill to not only lunge, but to develop that stability through the trunk, which is hugely valuable on the mat in the cage. All right, guys, the next is a squat pattern. It's a goblet squat. Probably you guys have seen this a bunch, but it's a really, really great way to teach people how to squat correctly. You know, with a lot of times, if it's a big barbell on their back or a front rack or position, it's just too much for people to handle at the beginning. So when we're starting, we just want to teach people good patterns. So with the goblet squat, we'll clean it up while we're holding the horns or holding the sides of that bell with the forearms vertical. So it's just right in front of our chest. There's not a lot of space here. You want it close to the chest. Feet about hip width or slightly wider. Eyes forward. And all you're going to do is take your elbows to the inside of your knees. So you just drop. Elbows come down right to the inside of the knees. Stand back up. Right? This is one that in teaching people how to squat over the years, it's almost foolproof. This one is a real great, easy, simple way to get people to get in the squat pattern and then overload it with different size bells over time. All right, this next one is a kettlebell swing. It's basically a staple. This is what made kettlebells famous, I think. But the kettlebell swing is really great for teaching the hinge pattern. Right? If you're proficient, I guess this is important to say, but if you're proficient at the deadlift first, like a kettlebell deadlift, this is a more explosive deadlift or a hinge at the waist, right? It's a hip dominant movement that requires that you have good strength through your torso to maintain posture and good strength and coordination through your hips and hamstrings to hinge and accept that load, absorb that load, and then propel that load out in front of us. So we're going to start out, we got the feet about hip width apart, maybe just a little bit wider. We want to give it a little bit, enough room where that bell's going to float down between our legs without knocking into our knees, right? So feet about hip width or slightly wider, the bell's a little bit out in front of us. We're going to hinge at the waist, so we're not allowed a knee bend on this one. We're going to have a slight bend in the knees, we're going to hinge at the waist. Torso stays tall, brace through the trunk. Both hands on the bell, and then we're going to hike that bell back up into our crotch, right? So tight stomach, hike the bell, and then the hips snap. Standing tall, letting that bell kind of float out. And then basically what you're doing is as your arms come back, you're accepting or absorbing that energy, hinging, and then snapping the hips forward, and then the bell basically floats up to about sternum or so height. We don't really actively go higher than that. All the energy is coming from our hips, popping forward. The bell floats out, and then if you choose to, we can draw with the lats to pull that bell back down into each rep. The most important thing is that you're hinging, you're braced through the trunk, and your spine is straight. Okay, and again, it's just a hinge pattern for the hamstrings and hips. Really great tool to have in your bag. All right, guys, this last one is a bottom-up carry. So we've done, a variety of presses and squats and lunges and hinges and swings, that type of stuff. This last one is a carrying drill that's pretty unique to a kettlebell. We're gonna have, it's called a bottom-up carry. So we're basically gonna hold that bell with the bottom up, right? That's going to be stacked directly over our wrist, which is straight, which is right over our elbow and tight to the body. But basically what you're trying to do is to keep that bell from falling, right? Your wrist is having to hold, your hand and wrist and forearm are having to stabilize and hold that weight, right? Which is very unique to a kettlebell versus like a dumbbell and something like that where the weights are on either side. But it's a really good one for the hands, the wrist stability, and the forearm, which I think is very applicable to a lot of guys that are fighting. All right, guys, hopefully that stirs up some ideas and gives you a little bit more insight on ways you can use the kettlebell more effectively during your workouts. Just like any tool, guys, there's so many different ways to manipulate that variable or use them for different goals. So what I would recommend is to dig in, find a really good coach, somebody maybe from Strong First or an organization that is similar to that, where they can teach you some good, solid basics so that when you do have that tool, you can use it appropriately. So hopefully that stuff helps out. If you guys have any questions or comments or anything like that, definitely leave them down below. We'll do our best to answer or at least point you in the right direction. And if you haven't already, definitely hit that subscribe button up above and stay in touch because we're putting out a lot of good content. We want to make sure it gets in your inbox.